Sometimes, late at night, when the world outside my window is finally quiet, I like to turn off every light and just sit in the dark. No phone, no screen, just the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen, the faint rush of cars far away, and my own breathing. In that silence, my mind always seems to drift toward the strangest places. And lately, it keeps returning to this one question that won't let go of me. Black holes, do they really evaporate? The thought feels almost wrong, like saying a mountain can melt or a shadow can burn away. I close my eyes and picture this enormous invisible pit in space, swallowing everything that comes near it, light and time and stories and maybe even hopes. And then I imagine that same thing, over a very, very long time, just fading, like steam from a cup of tea on a cold morning. And I wonder how something so powerful could ever grow so quiet that it disappears. I remember being a kid, standing outside on a winter night, my breath turning white in the air. I would blow out slowly and watch that tiny cloud appear in front of my face, thin out, then vanish into the dark. I didn't know it then, but that small, simple thing carries the same flavor as this big, cosmic question. Can something real, something you can feel and see, just softly vanish, leaving nothing behind but a memory? When people hear the words black hole, they often picture some kind of cosmic monster, a huge spinning mouth that eats everything. And in a way, that's not wrong. A black hole is just a place where gravity has gone too far, where the pull is so strong that even light can't find a way out. If you get too close, there's a point of no return, a kind of invisible line in space. Cross that line, and you don't come back. It's called the event horizon, but I prefer to think of it as a silent border, like the edge of a deep well at night that you can't see, only feel. If you could float in space near a black hole, you wouldn't hear it roar or growl. Space doesn't carry sound like air does. You'd hear nothing, just the quiet of your own body, your heartbeat in your ears, the soft creak of your suit. But visually, the area around it could be wild, light-bending, stars looking stretched like paint dragged by a slow brush. If there's gas swirling in, it might glow hot, bright, like a ring of fire, encircling a perfect black circle. A hole punched into the fabric of sight itself. It's hard, standing here on Earth with the smell of dust, the taste of air, the familiar weight of my body pressing into the chair, to imagine that out there, in the cold dark, there are places where time itself behaves like a strange animal. Near a black hole, if you watched a clock falling in, it would appear to slow down as it approached that invisible border. From your point of view, it would never quite cross. It would just stretch out its last moments, thinner and thinner, like taffy being pulled. To the falling clock, time would feel normal. To you, it would look like it was getting frozen in its final instant. There's something almost painful in that, like watching a goodbye that never finishes. For a long time, black holes were thought of as pure one-way traps. Stuff goes in, nothing comes out. End of story. It felt simple in a harsh kind of way. But then, in the 1970s, something strange happened in our understanding. People started asking a quiet, stubborn question. If nothing can escape from a black hole, is that really true? Or are we missing something tiny, something that whispers instead of shouts? And that's where this idea of evaporation comes in. The word evaporate makes me think of water droplets on a window after rain, slowly shrinking in the sun, or a puddle on a hot sidewalk, the smell of wet concrete turning dry again. It feels soft, slow, almost gentle. But connecting that to a black hole, this symbol of endless swallowing, feels like saying that even the deepest darkness has a kind of end. I remember reading for the first time about the idea that black holes might not be perfectly black, that they might glow just a little, not with a bright dancing light, but with an incredibly faint, almost invisible whisper of energy. Imagine the dimmest glow you can think of, then dim it again and again until it's almost more of an idea than a thing you could see. That's the kind of light we're talking about. The idea comes from something that doesn't feel very intuitive at first. The vacuum of space is not really empty. If you sit in a quiet room and listen hard, you'll always hear something: the hum of electricity in the walls, the passing car, the murmur of wind against glass. True silence is rare. In a similar way, true emptiness is rare too. Even in what we call empty space, there are tiny fluctuations, like little blinks of existence. Particle pairs that pop into being and then vanish again almost instantly. They're not like normal particles that hang around. They're more like brief thoughts that the universe has and then forgets. Now, usually these little pairs are born together and die together, so they don't leave anything behind. But near the edge of a black hole, the story gets weird. If one of those tiny partners falls in and the other escapes, the escapee can become real, like a person who steps out of a dream and starts walking down the street. From far away, it looks like the black hole has just emitted something. It has radiated. We call this Hawking radiation, named after the person who first worked it out. But names and labels aren't the important part. The feeling of it is what sticks with me. The idea that even the darkest places, the most intense prisons of gravity, are surrounded by this faint, ghostly glow of energy, born from the restless fabric of space itself. If you think of the black hole as an object with a kind of mass budget, every little bit of energy that leaks out means it's losing a tiny bit of that mass. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a slow, relentless drift. Over an almost unimaginable amount of time, these tiny losses start to add up. The black hole shrinks. Its edge moves inward. It becomes smaller, hotter, brighter in this faint radiation. And if nothing else falls in, if it's left alone in the dark for long enough, it can, in theory, evaporate entirely. Gone. No more event horizon. No more trap. Thinking about that, I feel something quiet and deep in my chest, like the feeling you get when you realize that even the strongest things you know are not permanent. Mountains crumble, stars burn out, black holes, the giants of the cosmic graveyard, might also have an end. Of course, when we say long time, we don't mean 10 years, or 1,000, or even 1,000,000,000. The time it would take a black hole with the mass of a star to fully evaporate is so long that our words start to lose their grip. Longer than the age of the universe right now. Longer than the age of all the stars we see. Longer than anything we can really wrap our senses around. It's like trying to taste tomorrow 1,000,000,000,000 times over. All we can do is point at the number and say, far beyond us. There's something strangely comforting in that distance. The black holes we know about today are not about to wink out of existence in a little puff of radiation. They're still there, still heavy, still shaping the paths of stars and gas around them. But the idea that eventually, in some far future when galaxies have gone dim and starlight has grown rare, these giants will slowly glow themselves away into the cold. There's a bittersweet taste to that. Like the last embers of a fire in a cabin after everyone has gone to sleep. I sometimes imagine that future universe, not the lively one we see in images from space telescopes full of bright clouds and fresh stars being born, but the old universe, the tired one. The night sky no longer a sea of scattered points, but mostly empty, with only a few red, dying lights left. The air, if there were any, would feel thin and cold. The smell would be like metal left too long in the snow. The only warmth would come from the last survivors, black holes slowly releasing their hidden energy, one faint breath at a time. If you could sit there and watch one of them, you wouldn't see something grand and cinematic. You'd see almost nothing at all. But if you had the right eyes, the right kind of sense, you'd notice the faint stream of particles and energy flowing away, like mist lifting from a black lake under a sky that will never see dawn again. There's a strange question that grows out of this. If a black hole evaporates, what happens to everything it swallowed? All the matter, all the light, All the patterns that once made up stars and planets and maybe even living beings. Do they just become part of this final glow? Does the information about what they were, every detail, every arrangement, get erased forever, like words wiped from a chalkboard? Or is it somehow hidden in that radiation, scattered and scrambled, but still there, in principle? Physicists call this the information problem, but to me it feels more like an emotional question. When something is gone, is it really gone? Or does the universe keep some record of it somewhere, in some form we can't yet read? On a human scale, we know the feeling of things fading. Old photographs yellow and curl at the edges. Smells from childhood, fresh bread, a certain kind of soap, the soil after rain in the place you grew up, become harder to recall. Faces blur, voices soften. Sometimes we try to hold on to memories so tightly that they hurt, as if by clenching them in our minds we can keep them from evaporating. But time moves anyway. Some things we lose. Some things we transform without noticing. When I think of black hole evaporation, I can't help but feel that same ache scaled up to cosmic size. A black hole doesn't just swallow matter. It swallows stories. The history of every atom that crosses its border is mixed into something that, from the outside, looks simple. Just mass, spin, charge. The details are hidden. If, at the very end, the black hole fades into radiation, does the universe lose those stories completely? Or are they written into the pattern of that final light, in a code too subtle for us to read? We don't yet know the full answer. There are ideas, beautiful ones, involving the way space and time might be woven together, like threads in a fabric. Some suggest that black holes are not just destroyers, but also mirrors, that the information is never truly lost, only stretched and scrambled and reflected in ways we don't yet understand. Others argue that, at some deep level, maybe some kind of loss is real, that there is a kind of cosmic forgetting. The thought of permanent forgetting is hard for me to sit with. I think of people I've known who aren't here anymore. The way their laughter felt in a room, the smell of their favorite food cooking, the little habits they had, like tapping their fingers when they were thinking or humming off-key in the shower. The idea that all of that could vanish absolutely, with no trace anywhere, feels sharp. But then I remind myself that even if the universe doesn't store each detail in some perfect vault, those moments still shaped me and others. Their echoes move on in different forms, like waves that have already passed but left the water forever changed. Maybe black holes are like that too. Maybe what they swallow is not gone, it's just rearranged so deeply that it no longer looks like what it was. Maybe the final evaporation is not a delete button, but a kind of last remix, spreading everything back into the universe as anonymous energy. I like to imagine standing on some impossible platform, very far away from a small black hole that's near the end of its life. Of course, this is just a picture in my mind, because in reality, by the time a black hole gets that small, it would be incredibly hot, incredibly bright in that ghostly radiation, and very dangerous to be near. But this is a thought experiment, so I let myself be safe. Around me is dark, empty space, a kind of silence that tastes metallic and dry in my imagination. Ahead of me, the black hole is no longer a giant. It's tiny, maybe the size of a mountain, then the size of a house, then a pebble, then smaller still, but somehow heavier than anything I've ever known. Its glow is fierce now, white and blue and sharp, even in this vacuum. It's like watching the final sparks of a campfire that has been burning quietly for trillions upon trillions of years. The radiation pouring out is intense, like a storm of light and particles. If I could hear it, maybe it would sound like a roar, or maybe like a high, constant hiss, like steam under enormous pressure. But in space, I only feel it as a kind of pressure on my skin, a wave of invisible touch. And then in an instant so brief it almost doesn't count as time, it's gone. No slow fade, just a last burst, and then nothing at all. The spot where it was is now just more space, cold and empty, The gravity well that once held so much has flattened. The final breath has been exhaled. Standing there in that imaginary moment, I feel a mix of emotions I don't quite have words for. There's sadness because something ancient has ended. There's wonder because what I just witnessed is something my ancestors could never have imagined. And there's a strange, quiet acceptance because endings are not failures in the universe. They're just part of the flow. Of course, that scene is only a story in my mind, built from equations and ideas and guesses that seem to fit together. We haven't seen a black hole evaporate, not even close. The ones we know are still in their long, middle-aged years, still feeding, still growing, still shaping their galaxies. The evaporation we talk about is a prediction, a consequence of blending our best understanding of gravity with our best understanding of how even empty space flickers with possibility. But I find it beautiful that, from that blending, we get a picture where nothing is truly eternal. Not stars, not black holes, not even the vacuum itself. Everything shifts, everything transforms. Some things transform so slowly that to us they look frozen, but on deep time, they're moving toward a different state. Sometimes when I'm washing dishes at night, feeling the warm water on my hands, hearing the soft clink of plates, I think about that deep time. I think about the fact that every atom in the soap bubbles, in the plates, in my skin, was forged long ago in stars that no longer exist. Those stars burned, lived and died, their insides scattered, mixed, cooled, and eventually became part of these simple, quiet moments in a kitchen somewhere on a small planet. If black holes do evaporate, then even the matter that once fell into them might someday rejoin that cycle, not as the same atoms or the same forms, but as energy that can become new things in a universe that has almost run out of places to put them. Maybe in some absurdly distant future, the last flicker of a black hole's evaporation becomes the spark for some tiny, brief structure in that cold dark. A wave, a fluctuation, a little pocket of order rising out of the sea of almost nothing. It's strange how thinking about these far, unreachable times changes the way the present feels. Right now, I can hear the low rumble of a passing truck outside, the gentle tap of something expanding and cooling in the room, maybe the heater, maybe the walls themselves. I can smell a faint trace of coffee from earlier, bitter and comforting. My body feels heavy in the chair, grounded by Earth's gravity. None of this seems connected to black holes. And yet, it all is in a way. Gravity, the thing that shapes my weight into this chair, is the same force that shapes black holes. The same rules of energy and particles and emptiness that allow a black hole to slowly evaporate are at work in the glow of my screen, in the heat of my hands, in the tiny dance of atoms in my cup. There is no sharp line between the everyday and the cosmic. It's all one continuous fabric, just with different textures. I like that thought. It makes the universe feel less like a distant, cold machine, and more like a single, ongoing story told at many scales at once. On one page, you have people arguing over small things, falling in love, worrying about bills, laughing at bad jokes. On another page, you have stars collapsing, galaxies colliding, black holes merging. On yet another, you have these same black holes slowly leaking away their mass, one silent quantum whisper at a time, toward a future they'll never see. But it's all part of the same book. And in that book, nothing seems to stay as it is forever. Not joy, not pain, not stars, not voids. The idea that even black holes, these symbols of finality, might be temporary. It softens something in me. It reminds me that clinging too tightly to anything, even to my own fear of endings, is like trying to hold on to smoke. Do black holes really evaporate? As far as our best ideas go right now, yes, they should. The math points that way. The picture of particles flickering at the edge, one falling in, one escaping, paints a consistent, if haunting, story. It might not be the final answer. The universe has a habit of surprising us when we look closer. Maybe when we fully understand how gravity and the quantum world fit together, we'll find a deeper explanation. Maybe even a different one. But for now, this is the story we have. Black holes are not forever. They are slow-burning fires, started by collapse, ending in a whisper. I think about what that means for us, these small beings who live for such a short time on a little rock around an average star. Our lives are so brief compared to the life of even a tiny black hole that it's almost ridiculous to compare. We are like sparks in the wind, while black holes are like long, slow coals buried in the ashes of dead stars. Yet we are the ones asking these questions. We are the ones lying awake at night, picturing the end of things we will never see. There's a quiet power in that. We don't need to live as long as black holes to imagine their fate. We don't need to witness their evaporation to feel the shape of it in our minds. Our curiosity lets us stretch our awareness across time and space, far beyond our own bodies. It's like having a sense that isn't bound by skin or by years. When I sit here in this dark room, speaking softly into the night about things so far away, they might as well be myths. I feel a kind of closeness to everything. To the people who first looked up at the sky and wondered what those tiny lights were. To the scientists who spent their days and nights wrestling with equations, trying to make sense of gravity and emptiness. To the future beings, if there are any, who might look back at our time and see us as children, just beginning to ask the right kinds of questions. Maybe, in some way, each of us is a little like that Hawking radiation. We are brief, fragile, flickering. We appear, we shine in our own small way, and then we're gone. But while we're here, we carry information. We carry stories, emotions, choices. We carry the memory of those who came before us and the seeds of what might come after. We come from the universe and then we return to it, changed and changing it in turn, even if only a little. Black holes evaporate if our understanding is right. They lose themselves to the universe bit by bit until nothing of their old identity remains. But the energy they give back doesn't vanish, it spreads. It becomes part of whatever the universe is doing then, whatever form it has taken. In that sense, a black hole's end is not a disappearance, but a transformation. And maybe that's the quiet lesson hidden in all this distant physics, the one that reaches all the way down into our very human lives, that nothing is truly still, nothing is truly final, and nothing is truly alone. We are all part of a flow that began long before us and will continue long after. We hold on for a while. We let go. We change shape. We evaporate into the larger story. Outside my window, the night is still there, heavy and soft. I can't see the stars from here. The city lights wash them out. But I know they're up there and somewhere, many light years away, the gravity of black holes is bending paths, swallowing light, shaping orbits. And somewhere even farther in the future, beyond any star I can imagine, those same black holes might be glowing their last, giving their final energy back to the thin, cold universe. I take a slow breath and feel the air fill my lungs. It smells faintly of dust and something warm, maybe the memory of the day's cooking. I exhale and my breath disappears into the room, unseen, mixing with everything else. In that small, ordinary act, I feel something of the same pattern. Energy moving, changing form, never quite ending, just passing through. So when I ask myself, do black holes really evaporate? I think of more than just equations. I think of rain drying on pavement. I think of steam rising from a cup. I think of memories fading but leaving behind a softer wisdom. I think of stars collapsing and then one day dissolving their darkness back into light. And I find myself whispering, almost to the universe itself, if even you, with all your gravity and mystery and silence, will someday let go, then maybe, just maybe, letting go is not something to fear. Maybe it's simply the way everything returns to where it came from, one quiet particle at a time, in a universe that is always, gently, changing its mind about what it wants to be.